Today we're reviewing one of my favorite releases every year, and it is Stagg from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. This one specifically is 24D, but today we're getting a little bit of help from the Nose Your Bourbon experience. Does it help the nosing and drinking experience? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever, and today we have some of my favorite pours every year. It is the Stagg Junior batches. I guess they're not called Stagg Juniors anymore, they're Stagg. These are roughly 8 to 9 years old. There is no age statement on them though. Yeah, that's just kind of the rumor mill that goes around on them. The proof points, they're anywhere varying from like the mid 120s up to like the mid 130s. This one specifically is 127.6 proof. These typically come out 2 to 3 times a year, but this year there's a 4th release. This is batch D. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It has been hard to track because they only recently started doing the A, B, C, D batches. I'm sure someone maybe can go back in history and check kind of more dialogue a little bit around that, but I don't recall them ever doing 4 times in a year. And as far as the costs on these, that is a little bit more of a sticky situation. MSRP is supposed to be like around $55, $60. That is what they are here in Virginia, in the ABC Control State. I was able to get this at one of the drops in Virginia. I got really lucky on that front because they drop at random times, random days. You don't know when they're gonna hit, so it's more of just like a luck of the draw, and I was lucky enough to grab this in one of the drops. But fortunately enough, the secondary on these bottles are coming down. They used to be like $200, $250. But lately I've seen the Stagg Junior batches, the more recent batches, move for like 120 to 150 range. So if this is something that you hunt for every year, it is nice to see that those prices are coming down. But to help me do the review today, I had the Nose Your Bourbon experience. This has been something that I've been looking out to try for a while now. My interest first peaked on this. Bardstown does kind of an experience, it's kind of similar to this. At the distillery, they pour out some whiskey. They have some different aspects out on the plate, like including like pop rocks that you either smell or taste as you are drinking the whiskey, and it helps bring out the notes in the whiskey. So I've been really interested in trying something like this to see if it helps bring out notes when you're just drinking whiskey at home. I'll have the link in the description below if this is something you're interested in. They have a couple different products. They have a smaller batch product, which I think only has like maybe 6 or so, like kind of the basic stuff. They have this one, which is the original kit, which if my math is right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, I think there's roughly 15, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. There's 18 different smelling experiences in this box. They also have an expansion kit, which is another 18. But I'm really excited to jump into this original kit because it has more of like the base experience you'd have, more of the common notes that you would pick out in bourbon. So this is probably a good one to just get started on, cut your teeth. Let's actually open it and see what are the different aspects that are in the expansion box here. They come with a nice little, what do you call it, a tasting wheel that can help you pick out the notes. This is the card itself that comes with the tasting experience. I'll think if I can find the image and just kind of leave it up here in the corner. Now this might be hard to get in focus on the camera here, so I might end up just doing a picture and kind of have it side by side as we talk through this here. So I break this down into different categories. We got our basic mash bills that go into it. You got your corn, your wheat, and your rye. So that's the typical main ingredients that go into whiskey. You'll get those, like say if you have high wheat whiskey, you get more of the wheat. You get a high corn, more bourbon, you'll get the bourbon. They also have different oak. They have an oak here, which is what you'd get from the barrel. And then they have a bunch of spices here. This is typically what you'd get on the back end of the palate. You have your allspice, black pepper, leather and tobacco. That might be more in the aroma, like a deeper, darker, richer bourbon. Then they also have a bunch of these, what I would call like the sweet part of your palate. This is kind of at the front, middle, your tongue, that area. And you got your typical caramels, vanilla, honey, brown sugar. That's like more of a darker whiskey, chocolate, maybe like in double oaks. And then they have the cherry here. They have the fruit separated from the sweetness in their scale. Typically in me, when I am drinking bourbon, I kind of group those together because there's a lot of the similar experiences. You'll get different notes in those different categories and different types of bourbon. Just like in my head when I'm thinking about fruit, I really kind of think of like more of the sweeter profile. This is awesome. I'm not sure which ones we're actually going to use today with the Stagg. Maybe we'll run through a couple of them, but let's go ahead and pour this whiskey and get us started. Cheers. Okay, right off the bat, I get traditional Stagg notes. You get that dark cherry, maybe a little bit of a jam note in there in the background, like a stewed cherry. So I'm excited to try this cherry here to see if that pops up on this and makes it more pronounced. I also get a deep, rich cola note. That is one of the notes that I look for most in bourbons. Most bourbons that I love have that deep, rich cola, and I'm excited to see that because these batches can vary. There's some more on the sweeter side, some that are closer to what a George T. Stagg is. And right off the bat here, the nose, this is to me much closer to a traditional Stagg, George T. Stagg profile. On the sugar, I'm getting more of like a molasses sugar. The closest thing here is probably a brown sugar, but I'd say this is more closer to like a melted molasses. Anyway, with those original notes, let's go ahead and open a couple of these that I talked about to see if it helps pronounce it, or maybe if I find new flavors in here. So we'll first start off with the cherry here. Now I'm not sure what type of cherries these are. Maybe you people at home that are better with your fruits and vegetables. It looks like just like a generic red cherry, but it's almost more of like on a raisin form now, which makes sense. You can't really have fresh fruit in a nosing kit. Right off the bat, the cherry aroma out of this is a little light, which makes sense. There's some fragrances that are more pronounced than others. So it mentioned when you're doing this that you should blow into it to kind of help get the notes moving and back up. So we're gonna try that here and see if that helps. Wow, that is wild how much that helps. It kind of makes sense. You're kind of blowing it in, getting just the molecules moving there, but it does make a big difference. Now I would say this is more of a riper cherry than what I'm getting on the Stagg. I'm definitely getting a lot of the same notes, but it's more of like a, I don't know if stewed is the right word, or just more jammy, more broken down, wet cherry than the dried out, more of a raisin note. I mean, what else to try here? Leather, maybe some leather. Let's see with the leather if I'm getting any of that. Sometimes you get leather in older aged bourbons. This is an 8-year, so maybe a little too young for that, but a lot of people do say leather notes when they talk about Staggs. Maybe a little bit actually. I'm getting a little bit of leather. However, this is new leather. Like, I don't know if you've ever have bought leather yourself or experienced it, but brand new leather has that light note to it. Typically in these bourbons that are older aged, it's almost more like a worn out leather, aged, it's been used a ton, and that's more the leather I think you'd get on these than this new aged leather, but it has kind of a lot of the same notes. Let's go back to the bottle and just see if I'm picking up any of this stuff though. Not so much the leather anymore, but the fruit notes are popping through a lot more after smelling that cherry. Maybe the oak. Let's go to oak next. This smells more like fresh wood. I don't really get fresh wood too much in my whiskey, but you can kind of get the notes, a little bit of that oak in the background on this. I wonder, maybe a suggestion for future packs, if you can do like burnt wood, because that's typically what we're getting in bourbon, is that toasted, charred wood. So maybe in future packs, if we can get like an oak and then also like a charred oak section, I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, and while that oak is not coming through, it is wild. Just having them side by side, it really does make the notes more pronounced. A lot of times when you're drinking bourbon, you're just kind of picking up on a memory, and that memory can be faint. Sometimes it can be incorrect, just people's memory. You kind of fill in gaps and you just move it around a little bit. So having them side by side, you actually are knowing what the note is supposed to be, and then you smell it and drink it. It's a much better experience and gets you to actually pick the correct flavor notes that you get out of the whiskey, instead of maybe a foggy memory that might be just a little slightly off. Let's see here. Let's try the vanilla and caramel maybe. Those are very typical bourbon notes. Maybe underlying vanilla. It's obviously not as pronounced as the vanilla in this. This is a strong vanilla, but maybe a little bit of undertone of vanilla in there now I'm getting. Actually, I'm gonna try something here. I'm gonna mix the bourbon and, not bourbon, the caramel and vanilla side by side as I'm smelling the bourbon here, because it really is a combination of these two. A lot of times you're getting when you're smelling bourbon, not just them separate or meant together. Oh wait, no, them separate. You aren't getting them separate, but you are getting them together. Yeah, those notes are coming through now too. Wow. Doing them together definitely is more matching what I'm getting out of the glass than when they were separate. So I definitely recommend you guys, if you're doing this, maybe mix them up a little bit. Put them next to side by side, or if you have your own jars, kind of maybe put 2 of them together in a glass as you're smelling them. I think that could be pretty cool. Now I could keep going through each of these and see if I'm getting those notes in the bourbon, but that would take forever. So let's go ahead and jump into the palate and see what notes we're getting there. Cheers. Okay, right off the bat, the most prominent notes coming out of this bourbon, I'm getting that deep, rich caramel, very rich, very viscous. A little bit of that cherry, not as most prominent as on the aroma. The aroma had much more cherry, whereas the palate is much more caramel forward. Also getting that oak, nice rich oak, definitely can tell it is well aged oak. And then right in the mid palate, it spikes and it turns into some type of spice. I'm struggling on what spice it is, so I'm definitely interested to jump in this and see if I can pick out one of these spices that is that mid palate spice, but it just expands and grows. And that's what I want in a good bourbon. I want there to be a roller coaster of flavors. It gets very viscous, very in-your-face flavor profile, and that's what this one is doing. Nice evolution from that nice sweetness to the front and mid palate into that spice, which just evolves and then it changes into a nice long finish on the back end. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the spices here. We have a couple to mess with. We got allspice, clove, black pepper, cinnamon. I don't think it's a cinnamon. We can maybe just knock that out here. This cinnamon to me is a little too sweet. Yeah, it is not cinnamon. There's no cinnamon on this, not that at all. Maybe let's go into, we'll do black pepper. That's a pretty common one. Maybe a little bit of black pepper. I wouldn't say that is the prominent spice, but I could definitely maybe see a little bit of black pepper there. Yeah, I would say black pepper would definitely probably be there. Let's go into the clove. I wouldn't say clove on this. Clove, this to me reminds me of like earthy, almost like black tea. I'm getting notes on this clove here. So when I think of earthy and black tea, I'll probably think of clove in the future. Allspice, maybe this might be the winner. Okay, I definitely see maybe allspice and black pepper, some type of mixture of those two. I might put those two together and see if I can catch that mid palate with maybe a mixture of those. We got a couple more here. I already did the leather. Let's try the tobacco. A lot of people save tobacco on older, richer bourbons. So let's see if that's in this. Maybe a muted tobacco. It's definitely not as prominent as this tobacco, but I can maybe see if there's like a light tobacco in the back end, maybe a little bit of that, but I'm gonna just focus on the black pepper allspice and see if I can get that in the mid palate. So let's go and drink again. All right, let's jump into the allspice black pepper. All right, I'm gonna take the black pepper off. I think that is not right. I'm backtracking on the black pepper. Maybe allspice mixed with tobacco might be the right combination for this bottle. Wow, okay, I think that is spot on. Mixture of this tobacco. That tobacco's gonna get on the back end, like very back end. So this allspice I think is what is that spiking of the spice after you get the caramel, the oak, the cherry, then transitions allspice spiking, and then after it kind of dilutes on your tongue a little bit after it sits there for a bit is what it turns into that tobacco on the finish. This is a really cool experience because I would not have been able to pick out all these flavors without these having right next to the glass. It is making just a more fun experience of drinking the bourbon, being able to pick out more notes into it, having the notes right next to it, and having that just awe moment of smell it, taste it, yes, that is it. Eureka moment, because a lot of times when you smell and drink it, you're kind of chasing after memories of different aspects, and when you have it right next to it, it's more of that just eureka moment. It's like, yes, that is exactly what it is. Before we get into my final thoughts on the Stagg 24D and the Know Your Bourbon experience, if you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any of my future videos that I post. First, we'll start with a review of the Stagg. This is a phenomenal batch. I am really enjoying this batch. This is more akin to what a George C. Stagg is than other batches. Sometimes they can be variants, some are more sweeter, some are more oak forward, whereas I think this is a nice, well-rounded experience. Definitely a one to be worth hunting for. If you only get one batch a year, definitely recommend you try to get the batch D. It's definitely one that I'm going to enjoy pouring in the future, and is one I'm gonna love putting blinds with other bottles that are $200 to see if this beats it, because I think this could stand up to a lot of those bottles. Now, the Know Your Bourbon experience. Is this something you should go out and try and buy and experience for yourself? Just to be transparent with you guys, this was sent to me to try myself to see if it is something I enjoy. However, I'm not getting any kickbacks. Like, I don't have a referral link that I get X percentage back from each sale. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys about it. This is something that you should spend your hard money and go out and try yourself. Now, these aren't cheap. This pack itself, the original one, I think is like $80. If you get the expansion pack, that's I think it's up to like 160, somewhere in that range. So this isn't a cheap experience, but I definitely think this is something for someone who is learning to try and expand their palate. I think this is something great for you to do yourself. you in theory could maybe do this yourself at home, get your own different ingredients and put them into jars. I've tried this myself with odd things here and there, like a chocolate bar and stuff like that. However, it doesn't really quite work as well, especially if you don't have the jars, because you need almost like a Glencairn where it perforates everything up. So if you were to do something like this at home, you definitely need to try and get the jars. And to build this type of a collection would also take a lot of time and money. But if you want to see if this would be something that would benefit you before you dive in and buy the whole pack, maybe at home, find one of the easier ingredients, break it down into its parts. Like if it's a chocolate bar, grind it up. If it's corn, grind that up too. Put it into some jar, find some type of thing like this, maybe a Glencairn if you have a Glen, a side by Glen, put in that, and see if it helps your experience. If that experiment there, you see a positive result and you enjoy that part of the experience, then this is definitely something you should go out and get. But for me personally, the Nose Your Bourbon experience has made the drinking experience a much more enjoyable experience. I'm able to pick out notes much more precisely. I'm able to get more notes out of the bottle. And when I'm drinking whiskey, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pick out the notes, try and tell the difference between all these bottles. And that is just something as like the geek inside me really enjoys. It's not meant for someone who's gonna like pour into a rash glass, just sit back, not really think about it, and just enjoy the whiskey that way. If you're someone who is trying to pick out all the parts in a whiskey, this is definitely something I would recommend you to go out and try. I enjoyed this pack so much that I personally, out of my own money, bought the expansion pack. I can't wait for that to come in, because the expansion pack has much more, I wouldn't say off profile, but more expanding the wheel of flavor profiles. Like this pack is much more for your base profiles that you'll get in a lot of different types of bourbons. The expansion one is more off profile notes you might get in hitter spots in other types of bourbons. So that's my review of the Stagg 24D and the Nose Your Bourbon experience. But if you're enjoying this content, before you hit that subscribe button, that way you don't miss any future videos, and check out this video. And until next time, cheers.